Hi and welcome to MJT's, I was going to say Wycombe Wanderers Plus. Well, it is Wycombe Wanderers Plus, but it's Chairboys chat as well. As you see, we've changed the design a little bit, and we are calling it also the Monday Night Football Show. And it will come out on Monday nights at 6 o'clock. That's because I want to make it clear it's not just about Wycombe Wanderers, it's about everything football and any topic that either myself or Kieran find interesting. But we're going to start with a topic that isn't so much interesting as sad, and it is something that I come across a little bit on this channel, which is also a bit of a shame, and that is abuse online. Now, I'm not talking just about racism, but I'm talking about racism and other abuse online. Now, I'm a youth worker and I deal with some of this where kids can be really nasty to each other and really upsetting to kids as well online. And the problem is, what I get a little bit bored with is hearing the players that have been abused online and the clubs where those players go to online making the comment, it needs to be dealt with. Twitter and Facebook, etc., need to do something about it, because the question is, I agree it shouldn't be on there. Of course I agree with it should not be on there. But what can you actually do? Well, here's the problem. What can be done about it? The first thing, the first comment, I'm not going to answer that, by the way. I'm going to give you about four ways of dealing with it. And you will see the pluses and the minuses, and then think about what you would like to do about it. Okay, I'm not going to answer it. But what can be done? Well, the first thing people say is, how about photo ID, passports, driving license, etc. So the people that actually use it can be identified and then prosecuted for using it. What's the problem with that? Well, there's quite a lot of problems with doing that. Got any ideas?
Putting your information onto a website, I imagine, of course, you'd have protection in there, but then Twitter and Facebook would also have your passport details and that sort of thing. I can imagine that's pretty
Exactly,
bad.
that's one of them. That is one of them. First of all, you've got to remember this is worldwide. This is not England. And therefore, these companies, Facebook and Twitter, etc., are going to hold the whole world's details. They're going to have everybody across the world. Now, can you imagine if somebody breaks into that? They're going to have everybody in this world, all their details. Can you imagine what would happen?
Facebook did, didn't they? They had someone break into their thing and got a lot of people's details, so it would happen.
It would happen. You cannot stop that happening. It would happen. That's number one of the problem with that. Number two is free speech. Now, of course, racism and abuse, free speech is wrong. Full stop. That is not free speech. But if you have people's details and you stand out as who you are, or at least these companies know who you are, what about fear of persecution in somewhere like Iran? People used it in Iran to have a go at their government. So you're killing that off. That could not happen. Okay. And also, for instance, the expression of views without the fear of persecution in all countries. You would shut up shop on people being allowed to criticize any government in any country. domestic violence is often used for people to come out and tell people what's going on and to get help. If you put people's names, etc. Now, that's a choice. Are you prepared to stop that? The other, of course, is poorer countries who don't have passports and driving licenses.
No.
A lot of people use it across the world who do not have these things to even prove this sort of stuff. The poorer people in the world. Now, that's a choice. Are you prepared to have Twitter and Facebook hold everybody's details that can be hacked into, and you are stopping people's free speech against governments coming out about all of the things that I've mentioned? Are you prepared to do that? If so, I'm not saying whether you should or you shouldn't, but if you are, then that's the route you go down. Okay, that's number one. The second choice is improving detection systems that scan for offensive words. Problem, simple. Using a monkey emoji, is that offensive? Kieran, is that offensive?
Depends what context you use it in.
Thank you, exactly. And the context people use words and pictures is forever changing, and you couldn't keep up, and is also used in a different context again across the world. Didn't we have that with the Mr. Manchester United up front, where he got done for 3 games, was it? Where he
Cavani,
used the word, yeah. Now, he should have learned what was allowed or what wasn't allowed, but where something is used across the world, there isn't a context to put it in. Do you know that, I'm just having a quick look, because the OK hand symbol has been used an expression as white supremacy in some places. So you can't use that anymore, okay? You can't use this, you can't use that, you can't say this, you can't say that. It starts making, you'd have to have a dictionary. Everybody would have to have their Facebook dictionary or their Twitter dictionary of what they can say, what word they can use, what emojis they're allowed to use, what it means. If you put this word next to this word, what does it mean? Of course, we know some are obviously really no-goers, but others are really on the grey scale, and in some countries you could be done for that. So is that a possibility? You decide. You decide whether you think that is a possibility. Number 3 was improving detection systems, and having people sat in an office or sat in a building going through it all and removing things as soon as they turn up. At the moment, we have 35,000 already that read and delete. Do you know, in Twitter, they have 35,000 people they've employed. Snag is, sorry,
They
that's
do a
in
lot.
Facebook. Snag is, there's 2.7 billion using it. You can't keep up, okay? So you can employ as many people as you like, but you'll always be behind. And also, they can only remove what's been put up. They're always behind.
I suppose.
So would you employ more people or not? There's the next question. Okay. 4th, restricting comments and messages. In other words, when I do this and I write underneath, leave comments, you shouldn't. And people shouldn't be allowed to comment on your Facebook page. other than, or on your Twitter, other than the people that you know and you have allowed to comment. So people have to ask permission. So you keep their name, even if it's a false name, and so you say yes, and you keep an eye on that person, and if they put anything that's offensive to you, you can stop them commenting.
So, for example, all footballers would have nobody be able to comment underneath whatever they post, essentially.
Exactly.
Apart from the people they know.
They could do something like all those season ticket holders.
Yeah, but then how do you validate that?
And also, we're back to it's not free to use, because other people, well, yes, you can, because it would be out there, but nobody could get to you.
There's no interaction kind of thing.
Exactly. It kills the whole point, doesn't it?
I only know of one person who actually does that, to be fair. It's actually Origi for Liverpool. On his Instagram, he only allows people who he follows to comment on his posts. That's the only one I've ever seen do it.
Okay, so that's another option. And that is really all I can come up with. I have no other ideas other than shut it down. There, I do not see. So everybody's saying they should do something about it. Which choice is that? Take your pick. Is any of those the answer? Because in the end, the answer is there's some nasty people out there. And
there always will be.
You can't stop. You won't. We're only discussing how to stop them or how to remove them. But in the end, they won't go away. And it's fair enough that they shouldn't be allowed to put comments up there that people do not like to see. But then it's up to you. The trouble is, the reason why there's so much about footballers is it means so much to footballers because of the money side and the advertising, etc. And it's to get them out there to their fans and to be heard, to be seen. And it shouldn't be, I understand it shouldn't be a choice between them doing that and not doing that. But I don't know the answer. And I'm not saying 1, 2, 3 or 4 are the correct answer. I'm saying if you can come up with the perfect choice, then because you're going to have to make a choice. If you stand there and say, we need to do something about it, which one? Okay, or 2 even. And just as a last point, and then we'll leave this and go on to more interesting football stuff. Okay, the last point is abuse. Let's remove the racist abuse. I mean, that's shocking. I mean, that the reason that comes top is because of the quantity, and it's absolutely disgusting, and we both agree with that. Let's make that clear. I'm not saying it should be allowed to happen. I want to make that clear.
It's almost like it's increased since all the Black Lives Matter stuff has happened.
People are copying, and people know they're getting things going, and that's a sad human being.
It's ridiculous.
But can I just say, I find the use of the 2 words Jesus Christ as a swear word on comedy programs, I find that abusive. I'm a Christian, and when people go, oh, Jesus Christ, I find that abusive. Why is that allowed? Who decides what is abuse and abusive language and what isn't? Because if I find that abusive, and I think I've got good reason to find that abusive, why is that okay? And not just me, that means somebody else will find something else abusive. Who decides what is abusive and what isn't? Now, that's a whopping question. And again, I'm not answering that, but I'm just saying, you clean up the racism on abuse, because as a youth worker, what I find is if somebody makes a joke about somebody and everybody has a good laugh and it seems fine, even to me, if that person bursts into tears and goes running off to the toilet because she or he has found that abusive, then as far as I'm concerned, that's abusive to them. And therefore, whoever did it needs to learn that she or he finds that abusive and must, for their sake, not do it.
So
lots of people would find Jesus Christ abusive. So is it fair to stop it? And
because a lot of people don't find it offensive.
Yeah, but does it matter whether, because a lot of people don't find racism abusive. You see, that we're in a really tricky situation with all this, and I'm not agreeing that racism is okay. I'm really not, and I think that needs to be stopped. It does have to be stopped, but I don't know which one to choose. I do not use I'm not on Twitter, I'm not on Facebook, I'm not on any of those things. But the last point I want to make is I have a little thing written on my whiteboard here that says to me, think before you open your mouth and be careful. Because a couple of weeks ago, I made one or two comments about a team that I realised after I played it back, although I thought it was just a joke and a bit of a laugh about Derby, I actually realised it sounded a little bit not nice. And so I keep that up there to be very careful what I say. And also, when I read back what people write, I've had to remove a few where people use hate against a team, even on this channel. I mean, how sad is that even on this, I get abusive language and arguments saying you're wrong, I'm right. What do you think you're saying that for? That's not, and then two people cotton on and start going at each other. I think that is really sad. I do this because it's fun, but online, I don't know the answer. So shall we leave it there?
Should we move on to Wycombe losing?
Right. Well, Wycombe, yeah. Wycombe. Remember, Wycombe did win Reading and lost to Stoke. So
Stoke, Norwich, mate. It was only yesterday.
Those goals were goals that Allsop would have let in, the two against Norwich. Or do you think?
I think they.
Have I got the wrong? Do you think? I mean, I think they're both good goalkeepers, but
I think they're both good goal. I don't think there's a major gap between them. I mean, in the games that Stockdale's just played, he's made some very, very good saves, which is was fine. But Allsop was making very, very good saves as well, like the whole season. Whether Allsop would have saved the ones against Norwich, I think they are more to do with reflexes, weren't they? It was because the first one was a deflection. It was a bit unlucky. You're not really sure if he would have saved that. Second one was a bit crappy as well. It came from the corner.
Yeah, he pushed the ball away. But Allsop does that as well, doesn't he? He's not great at holding on to the whole ball. He does have a tendency to push the ball away rather than catch it.
I wouldn't say there's a big difference between Stockdale and Allsop. But I mean, teams at the bottom of the table commonly have their best player being their goalkeeper, don't they? Because they make saves every game. I'd say him. He has a very good season. I'd say. I think him and Knight, in my opinion, from what I've seen, Knight's always put in a solid performance most games. So yeah, I wouldn't say it's biased.
Knight did have a couple of dodgy.
He has had a couple of dodgy moments, but then he is about 19, 20, isn't he? So you kind of expect that, and he has played near enough.
Messi, actually, I mean, he's made one or two desperate errors. On the other hand, he's also the other end of the scale, where he's also
Yeah, I mean,
Brilliant.
to have a lone player come in at the age of 19, 20 and play near enough every game and be a pretty big part of what you're trying to achieve, I say he's had a very good season as well, to be fair.
But with the goalkeepers, I thought. I mean, I might be completely wrong. I mean, I'm not a goalkeeper, but I thought Allsop's done really well this season, and I'm
I,
not. And I maybe I'm wrong, and maybe this guy is sort of saying, about
I
Allsop
don't.
not being great. Maybe he's right. Maybe I've sort of put Allsop up here in my head as being brilliant. So everything I see. I mean, I do that with players. I know I put players down and put players up. And in my opinion, like Rashford can't have a good game. And I know I do that. And his question, I'm quite happy for people to put their opinion. That's what it's for. That's what the comments are for. As long as they don't have a go at me and accept we can have a difference of opinion. And I will look at his opinion and have a think about it. Good, like I'm doing, in fact. I'll be interested on other people's comments on what they think of Allsop and Stockdale without being rude about either of them, but actually maybe pick one. I mean, because Ainsworth is going to have to pick one shortly.
Yeah. Well, it was weird. It's just like not long ago, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, we sent him out on loan, didn't we? Because we didn't think we'd need him.
Perfect. Get him
And then
fitness.
get his fitness up, get him back straight away, and he's put in some very decent performances. I think the difference is whether it's how many points a goalkeeper wins for you, isn't it? I think Allsop would win you more points in the season than Stockdale would, but I don't think there's too much difference in it. I think they're still both very good. I think the thing is, in saying that, I remember the first few games that Stockdale played for us. It might have been last season when Allsop was injured. I didn't think he was great. He could just be in very good form, for all we know.
I think he wasn't sharp enough because he hadn't played. I
More
mean,
than
pulling
likely.
a goalkeeper off of a bench is a lot more difficult for the goalkeeper than pulling your left back out, because he can be covered a bit. Whereas you especially at the bottom of the table, you've got to be on your game. And so Stockdale has done that for us in the last 3 games. But it was just this guy's comment when I said I thought he's been our player of the season. I have changed my mind a bit in that I would probably give it to somebody else now, thinking about it. I'm thinking there have been quite a few choices, actually, from Knight to Meshmeti. I think he deserves a pat on the back. Certainly, he's changed because he's changed it. I think, what's his name? Taffazoli. I think he's been brilliant in there when we needed him to be.
I think Jacobson's had another very good season, to be fair.
We've missed him.
Yeah.
I mean, all the crosses and stuff. After that, well, what about the guy up front?
I don't think you can say him.
He'll get man of the season, but he's made a big change. I mean, we've got enough players out there. It's funny that you sit at the bottom of the table and you're picking. Well, we've got all these players that are playing brilliant. Funny that, isn't it? Reading was shocking, weren't they?
They weren't great, were they?
Top 5.
They didn't look like they were gonna. If they got promoted to the Premier League, then flipping heck, good luck to them.
Do you know what their problem was? I thought they were way too in the middle. They didn't use the wide areas at all, which are Wycombe's weak points. And they just come out and down the middle. And down the middle, with our defence, we could cover that without a problem. We'd got the 4, we got the 2 in the centre back and 1 standing in front of the centre back. We'd got basically 3 centre backs right down the middle in front of goal and a goalkeeper. I mean, they weren't getting through there. I don't understand. I think that was poor management, actually, because he'd got some great runners on that pitch, some great down the wing players, and they just didn't do it.
No. I mean, I always think will try to think what's the best system to play against. If you're a team with the possession the whole time, which Reading pretty much did, and you've got to go up against a back five, it's always going to be difficult, isn't it? You have to be very patient in your play and try and work a few little areas. But going through the middle is just definitely not the one.
No.
Which is
what about Norwich then? Are Norwich good enough to go back up, and are they too good in the Championship? Will they come down again next year?
Probably. Like, they're good. Don't get me wrong, they're good, and they have had a few runs where they've lost a few games on the bounce, haven't they?
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit difficult to judge it against us because teams do struggle against us. We don't lose by much normally.
Well, one goal, or I mean,
it's one or two.
Is already lost. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's a little bit difficult to tell just going off against what they've played against us. But you look at their team and it's like, do they really have like the mental willpower kind of thing to stay in the Premier League? I'm just not sure they do. Although in saying that, it could just be very easy for me to say, no, they haven't got it. But then they do need more experience. They need a bit more Premier League experience in there, who have actually, played in some top 10 Premier League teams. Because at the moment, it is definitely bottom half Premier League players they have.
Do they need when they go back up, get rid of 5 players and bring in 5 older Premier League players experience? That's what they need to do, isn't it?
But then there's a few players that they got in there. I think a few attacking midfielders. I know Buendia is one of them, isn't he?
I said on my thing,
who could be sold easily.
I don't think he'll stay.
No, this is what I mean. There's a few of their players who would definitely get sold, I think, because Premier League teams will go after them. I think Cantwell's another one, isn't he? I'm surprised he's still there, to be fair.
Yeah, well, they are. He wanted to go, didn't he? And he wanted to go, and they didn't want him to go.
Kept him for another season.
I was glad to see that he wasn't playing, actually.
To be fair, although in saying that, he hasn't scored or assisted that many, to be fair, this season. It's probably easy to go off stats, but he hasn't done too much.
He hasn't done too much. Well, that's Wycombe. The other game, I'm just going to focus on one other game in the EFL. We can do all the Swansea losing again stuff, but really the top game in the EFL this weekend was Bournemouth versus Watford. They're near the top, and this was a very entertaining, dreadful game. In that I noticed on the TV Quest, it was virtually the last game they showed. I think it was down to the lack of football involved, but the bit that everybody was interested in was near the end. I'm not talking about the punch-up was one, but the other was the Bournemouth goal in the second half. Now, I did look it up on YouTube beforehand, and you cannot find I saw it, I have seen it, but they've removed it off of all the videos on YouTube, those 2-minute bits. And there's something like about sort of 6 different versions of, and it's not on any of them, this bit. And I have seen it. It's worth looking on Quest if it's still on there. And because you can look it up on Discovery Plus, download the app and watch Quest on there. And the bit that they miss out, which should be on Quest, is the free kick that Bournemouth scored from. From the free kick, they looped it up over all the players. One Bournemouth player ran onto it and scored. But that free kick wasn't Bournemouth's. The ref had given it to Watford, and Bournemouth took it. I'm telling you the truth. You look it up afterwards. There was a foul committed, and it was 2 players. You wouldn't look at that. 2 players went in. Okay, the referee blew his whistle, gave it to Watford. There was a bit of a sort of scuffle then, and a bit of arguing and and there was a bit of sort of time taken before the free kick. Watford didn't have the ball. Bournemouth picked the ball up and took the free kick, and nobody seemed to pay any attention. They actually brought this topic up on Quest. They did mention it. It wasn't just me, okay? And Bournemouth scored, but it was Watford's free kick.
What? So the ref just played on? Just
who had given it to?
Oh, but I'm looking at it, and it seems as though all the players are somewhat agreeing with, or just they're going along with what's happened.
Yeah, no, nobody complained.
Oh, interesting. And
yeah, they mentioned it on Quest, and I watched the replay just to check that they were right on Quest as well. And it was the Watford free kick. Bournemouth took it and scored. And then, of course, at the end, there was that bundle, wasn't there?
Yeah.
And there's a player which I thought was hilarious. It was Lima, the Bournemouth player Lima, who gets involved. He was the one that was fouled. He'd committed a foul much earlier. It was desperate. He was lucky, in my opinion. He'd committed tons of fouls. Lucky to be on the pitch. He then gets fouled, and there's a bit of a bundle. And the funny part about it was that the Watford player was sent off, and then all the players get involved, and Lima goes round pushing. Okay, every time he pushes a player, that player gets angry and comes at him. He then gets away, and that player gets booked. And Lima just goes around pushing people, getting them angry, and then that player gets booked. And it is, if you watch it, because those highlights will be on there,
no.
It is really funny. I think, and then he gets pulled away by one of his players to make sure he doesn't go. Do you know he didn't get a booking?
Do you know?
He didn't even get a yellow card throughout the game. If there is a video on there showing Lima's fouls, Lima's pushing, you will see how he gets away on that game. Completely clean. I just do not understand. He started everything.
Towards the end, he was just walking around, not doing anything.
Yeah.
And it's everyone else then having a bundle.
Yeah. So he starts it, he pushes them, they get angry, and he just causes the whole thing. And he doesn't get a yellow card. I think that's hilarious. I think the bloke is great. I mean,
there's even a guy on the bench who's having a chat with Lower and just laughing with him.
Yeah, because I think he thought it was hilarious. So that's the bit out I've just had to mention. And the bit on this is I'm going to put a video up just here to show you probably a game that was far more hilarious than that. And that was a game that had to come to a stop due to the amount of red cards handed out. So take a look at this.
The race goes on.
In 20 odd years, it's an unbelievable experience, really.
It's disgraceful, to be perfectly honest. I've been in football now since I was 16. I'm 42 now. I've never seen anything like that.
Nobody has. Sheffield United West Brom, the first English League game to be abandoned through lack of players. And here's how. 7 minutes in, deliberate handball by United's keeper earns their first red card.
Simon Tracy goes.
And they use their first sub. 61 minutes, Albion take a 2-0 lead. In response, United throw on their remaining 2 substitutes. But almost immediately, one of them, George Santos, is in serious trouble. In the melee, the other, Patrick Sufo, is also sent off. The Blades are down to 8.
Andy Johnson has played very well and has been leathered by a substitute who came on, and the first thing he did was go over the top after 5 seconds. Derek McInnes has probably scored the goal of his career and he's now having stitches put into his eye. And then the scenes that followed were an absolute disgrace.
Neil Warnock's side could easily have picked up a 4th red. Michael Brown, already booked, got the benefit of the doubt this time. But soon after West Brom went 3 up, he walked off, apparently injured. And with 7 minutes to go, Robert Hallathorne insisted he couldn't continue, leaving ref Eddie Wolstenholme no choice. Game over.
They had a few players left on, enough to finish the game. They were being told by certain people to go down, come off. Michael Brown wasn't injured.
He had a groin in the first half, Michael, and he should have come off at half-time. But because we were losing 1-0, he wanted to come on. And, you know, obviously I don't want him to aggravate. We've got a tough match on Tuesday night as well.
There are a few midweek games, so we might as well do them. So on Tuesday, it is Man City versus Wolves.
Where's all my details?
Don't know, mate.
I might have left them in the kitchen. I'm going to have to try and remember. Or we can stop. I'm going to pause it, Kieran. I'll get me notes.
But,
Right,
yeah.
off we go. Sorry about that. Again, Channel 4 quality there.
On Tuesday, it's Man City versus Wolves.
Man City versus Wolves. Now, just obviously, well, that one's sorted. Yeah, we did stuff last week about how boring a Manchester City. Guy, can I just say that when Manchester City beat West Ham this weekend, how much do you think, money-wise, was sat on Manchester City's bench?
I did hear a number. It's quite big. 350.
Yeah, I've got 300 million.
Yeah,
Was sat on Manchester City's bench unused. I mean, you know, if anybody says, "Oh, well, you know, they're playing so well," so they flipping. I mean, they could have put 7 players from their bench out and should have won, shouldn't they?
What was it? There was a tweet saying which players weren't playing, and it was like all their informed players, like Cancelo, Gundogan, Jesus, etc. They're all on the bench, and yet they still just play as normal, don't they? It's just like, what are you supposed to do?
It's just a waste of time, isn't it?
It is a little bit.
Yeah.
Well,
some Wolves have had it, haven't they?
Oh, yeah, no chance, lads.
No.
Burnley versus Leicester. Leicester lost to Arsenal.
Well, Leicester have had a bit of a bad week, haven't they?
Yeah, Europa League as well, which you would have thought, like, should have been a competition they should have gone for, really.
Well, see, I think Leicester are going to offer Liverpool their place in the top 4.
Really?
I think Leicester are on their way down, man. And I'll tell you why. Injuries. Shall I tell you who's out now?
Go for it.
Barnes is probably out for the season. Evans, Maddison, and Varney looks like there might be.
Vardy.
Vardy, that's what I said.
Vardy.
Yeah, and there's some more as well. They're the names that I recognised, and then they did say a couple of others. So I reckon they're worn out and had it.
Could well be. I mean, Barnes and Maddison, both of their attacking midfielders, like, there's a decent way down to their substitute cams as well. I think it's like Perez or something.
They're just not deep enough, the team. And Barnes, they've needed Barnes, haven't they?
He's been fantastic this season, hasn't he? And Maddison.
Yeah.
You would have liked to see both of them for England, really. I mean, Maddison for sure. Whether Barnes or Maida, I don't know.
Do you know what their last 3 games of the season against? United, Chelsea, and Spurs.
Cool.
Yeah.
could be the deciders for top 4, innit?
Yeah, I think that's where Liverpool, if they get their act together, could find. There's one that's dropping out of the top 4.
I tell you what is annoying for Liverpool is that obviously we won yesterday. Next game is against Chelsea. Like, do you think?
Yeah.
I think that could
you
be
just won a game, and Chelsea was shocking yesterday.
Were they?
United. I started to watch it, and after 10 minutes, I have decided to turn it off. Both
That-
United
yeah.
and Chelsea were shocking. I mean, I think they passed it to the opposition, both teams, more often than they passed it to their own team. And Chelsea playing out the back. Oh my goodness. They can't play it out the back. They're not good enough. They were shocking. How many times did they kick the ball straight out for throw-ins? I mean, it really was poor. And if you'd got any speed up front, how many times are you going to get that ball? I think Chelsea might as well kick the ball in their own net when Liverpool play them. That's my honest.
Let's hope so.
That's my honest truth. And as for United, well, where do you go with that? What, they've drawn 0-0 5 times against the top 6, and they lost 1-1-0. So, and do you know how many chances they had in that game? Across the 6 game yesterday, they had 6 chances, and they weren't even anywhere near. They were useless, absolutely useless.
Well, I suppose we've got to just quickly say, was it a penalty or not? Do you even know about it? Have you seen it? I think I'm too biased to give an opinion. That's a problem.
Okay. That was Wycombe. I would have said yes. Okay.
Because it's United.
I would have
say
given it. The reason you don't is because you just feel like they get too many. But that's not fair. I would have given it. Yeah.
I think I would have given it, to be honest with you. As much as I wouldn't have wanted to. Because it does look a bit meh. It does as well, to be fair. It's not particularly clean, like the handball kind of thing. And then Greenwood handballs it as well. And so you're kind of like... But yeah, I think it probably was.
Can I just say, where I said 6 chances, I got that wrong. I've got that written down because I was supposedly remember the bit that I didn't write next to it. That is, Fernandes has only created 6 chances in those 6 games. Was the bit I was supposed to remember, saying that if he doesn't play, they don't play. And that's a little bit too close for comfort.
They're so overly reliant on him, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. So they've not scored any goals against the top 6 in the last 6 matches because he hasn't produced in those 6 games.
Yeah. Is it one of those players that produces in the games against the lower table teams as opposed to the...
That's what it would seem, isn't it?
That's what it seems like, isn't it?
Yeah.
But to conclude, I'd want Burnley to beat Leicester for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Whether they will or not, I reckon it could be a draw. I'm going to say draw for that one.
I'm going to say Burnley win that. I'm just trying to think of the back lineup of Leicester, and I think Burnley will win that in the air.
True, could well do. Next up, we've got Sheffield United versus Aston Villa. Can't remember if Grealish is back yet, but they did beat Leeds 1-0, which was quite impressive.
He's not back, yeah.
Villa, they beat Leeds 1-0, which I thought was quite impressive because they didn't concede without Grealish. I thought, fair play to you, you've done well there. So yeah, I'll go Villa.
Who did you say they're playing?
Sheffield United.
Right. I'd say the problem Villa have is they're the highest pressing team up front in the Football League. And that all the others have pressed less this season than last. Aston Villa have pressed more this season than last. They're the only team. And I think that could be a little bit dangerous. Having watched Sheffield United against Liverpool. Sheffield United were brilliant.
Really?
Yeah, I thought they were really good.
I thought they were decent, yeah.
And the problem was they didn't play like all the other teams that beaten Liverpool. They went for it, didn't they? Sheffield United.
They had more chances, didn't they?
But they were more spread out
Definitely.
on the football pitch, which suited Liverpool down to the ground. And I wonder, I think the reason why I would say Aston Villa will win it, because let's be honest, Sheffield United couldn't score a bloody goal if it was on the line, could they?
What Sheffield United didn't do enough was cross it in. Because they had McBurney, who's ridiculous at heading the ball. Can't kick the ball, but he can head the ball. Obviously, he did miss the biggest chance they had. But like, if they just did that more, then I wasn't convinced. Phillips, fine. Kabak, not sure. So if they had just put McBurney on him, I think they could have got a few, to be fair, against us. But
they're a great team with nobody who can score a goal. And can you say that about a number of teams sat there at the bottom? It's this number 9 topic that I want to talk about sometime. You know, Liverpool definitely got a problem with number 9, even though he did score a goal.
Not really. It was a no goal in the end.
Was it?
Yeah. The next game is go for it.
Aston Villa.
Aston Villa. Crystal Palace versus Man United. It's always one where you're like, oh, Crystal Palace could do something, isn't it? It's always one of those.
Do you know, Crystal Palace have picked up 4. This pad, do you see why I need
I was going to say, I was literally about to say, oh, look, he's turned the page on his pad. He's got a stat coming.
Yeah. Crystal Palace have only had 9 touches in the opposition's box in the last 2 games and have picked up 4 points. They didn't have a single shot yesterday, okay, on target. So of the 9 touches in the opposition's box, the opposition have had 70, but Crystal Palace have picked up 4 points. What does that tell you about Crystal Palace?
Clinical, mate. Benteke.
Cynical. Yeah. Cynical.
Clinical, not cynical.
What?
Clinical.
Oh, right. It's like you can tell which one's at university. Which one started his job at the age of 15, 16, never did English lessons. Yeah, but they have got a problem, Chris, but they've got 5 of their first team out and have had for the last 2 games. And remember, they have played, it was Fulham and Brighton they played. Yeah. So who we got here?
Man United. It should be Man United, shouldn't it? If we're being fair.
I shouldn't even bother watching that one, would you? I mean,
probably
what a drag of a game that's going to be.
Probably. I think I will give that one a miss.
Yeah.
But I think it probably will be United.
It'll be a dive in the box.
And they don't get a penalty. Fulham versus Spurs. Spurs, I guess. Actually, no, Fulham have been decent recently, haven't they? Probably still Spurs, but Fulham have been getting there.
Fulham need to borrow Bale for the day, don't they? They need a goal scorer. All these teams need goal scorers. I know
they're goal scorers, and they wouldn't be there.
I know that's a symbol. Yeah, but they can't, can they?
No.
They just can't do it. It's annoying because they look so good. But like Brighton, they just can't score.
They can pop the ball around as much as they want, but they just can't put the ball in the net.
Yeah, I don't know. Who's he playing? I can't. It's too
Spurs.
Spurs are too good now. If he's playing Bale as well, and he brings on
Kane.
Ali, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does now.
I think they got too much in there to score goals now. I mean, have Spurs changed their format of game? There's your question. I think it seems to have changed.
They could be another contender for the top 4.
They could.
A big contender.
Bale, they gave something like about 9.7% 9.7 out of 10 for his game yesterday.
Really?
He was the best player on the pitch. So
Fair.
they say. I mean, I didn't watch it.
It's been a while since you've been able to say that about him.
Yeah, they reckon he's up to speed.
Good. We want to see Bale doing well.
Well,
Well, to an extent. West Brom versus Everton. West Brom are trash. or
Brom
not
are
very
trash.
good. Is that the sort of thing I'm not supposed to say?
Well, you can back it up. As long as you can back it up.
They don't score goals. They concede a lot of goals. They're going down. They just don't have they just don't have quality in their team. Realistically,
No, it's not good enough. And I they're good enough to come back up.
Yeah.
But like this whole number 9, it's this number 9 place. You always wonder why everybody talks about the centre forward. But West Brom can, like Fulham, like Brighton, etc. They do seem to be able to keep. They're not worse at letting the goals in, but they're worse at scoring them. It's such an important role.
Give me a minute. The doorbell's just gone.
I'll give you a minute and I'll put it. Okay. Got a nice present there, Kieran, have you?
I hope so.
Yeah. It's not from me.
No.
Okay. So, yeah, number 9s. That is definitely. I've got so much to talk about, haven't we? Football, Any of it interesting to anybody who listens, I doubt. Okay.
And the last game is Liverpool-Chelsea. Flip those. I'd obviously hope Liverpool. I think we do have Fabinho, Jota, and maybe Alisson coming back, which would
your
be.
Other goalkeeper did all right.
He did all right, to be fair to him. Yeah, nothing wrong with him last night.
Well, Liverpool. I mean, Curtis Jones, brilliant, wasn't he?
I love Curtis Jones. He has to start every game for me.
He does.
He never puts a foot wrong. He never seems to lose the ball, which at his age as well is just absurd.
It's definitely yeah.
But as much as I like Curtis Jones, the midfield three of Thiago, Wijnaldum, and Jones there's not enough going forward there for me, unfortunately.
Thiago causes too many free kicks.
He does. I'm sure when we get our full formation and you get your Van Dijk, you get your Gomez back, sort of thing. And I'm sure he would be the player he was at Bayern. But at the moment, he doesn't seem as good as Wijnaldum or Jones. Quite honestly,
I always think that with Wycombe as well. How many times do people give daft free kicks away? Who was I watching the other day? There's one game I'm thinking, what are you doing? Why do you do that? If you go into the back of a player on the edge of your box and you've got 2 of your own team in front who can clearly deal with that, why bring him down, giving him a great free kick? I have never, ever understood what's in the brain of footballers. I just don't understand it. Are they thick or what? I mean, what a daft comment I've just made. But don't they get taught that if you give a free kick 10 yards outside of your 18-yard box, you're giving them a free shot on goal? And in the Premier League, they're too flipping good at it.
Yeah. The ridiculous one, if we're talking about Thiago, was he gave one away against Leicester, which they scored from. Probably it was nearly a penalty by about that much. It would have been a penalty. But he wasn't even going for the ball. He just took the player out for no reason. And it's just I know you don't want to make the comment, but it's just what is going through your head to make you make that decision of just taking the player out right on the edge of the box? They've got flipping Maddison taking the free kick. Of course there's a good chance they're going to score from this. Maybe there would have been a good chance they'd score if they went into the box as well, but you have to, weigh it up a little bit. And it seems like some players don't.
The two teams we haven't talked about is Newcastle and Brighton. I don't know when they play. Did we mention Brighton? I don't know. Just a couple of things I want to say on those two teams. I don't know when they play. Is it Potter's fault? Is the first question for Brighton. I mean, is it his fault? I mean, the rest of the season is 12 games left for him. 9 of them are in the top 12. He's got all the top of the league to play. Okay, he's played all the bottom. He's now got all the top. I mean, what is he supposed to do? I mean, against West Brom, okay, you've got to discuss. You've got to say about the West Brom what happened with that free kick. Did you see? Did you hear or see? When the referee blew his whistle to take it, he then changed his mind, blew his whistle, and disallowed the goal. Did you see that?
Such a calamity.
And what made me laugh was the referee then went over and looked at VAR. don't see what it got to do with that. He can't blame VAR for his bad decision making. And
you also see the I can't remember which ref it was. It might have been John Moss, I think. He was supposed to be the 4th official for the Liverpool game last night, but got injured and so couldn't attend. It was just like, did you get injured in that game? It's just avoid backlash. But that was awful.
If anybody watched the rugby, England against Wales, very similar, where the ref allowed Wales to there was a sort of a scuffle and it was given to Wales, the penalty, blah blah blah, and it was sort of given to Wales. And before England had turned round and got ready, Wales had gone off and scored a try, and he's not allowed to do that. I mean, I think the referee gave Wales 17 of their points because of bad refereeing. I've never seen bad refereeing in a rugby match. Obviously, they've been watching football. It's the only, I've never seen it. I've always looked at rugby and thought, why can't football be like that? Except, of course, it was a French referee, and I'm not suggesting the French referee was biased toward England and Wales. I'm not suggesting he didn't like England. I'm not saying that. But I've never seen bad refereeing in rugby.
Well, that one was really weird, though. The one where England were having a little huddle, and then he gave him about a second to get back in position, and then he was like, "Oh yeah, go for it."
Yeah, and they hadn't even got in line, had they? And they turned around and they scored a try. Baffled me, but that was exactly the same as this. The guy blew his whistle. They went off to score, and then he looked around, realised the other West Brom weren't ready, blew his whistle and stopped the goal. Baffling. Talk about bad luck, because Brighton do have a number of goes, and that was one of the 70 that went in. And
did they miss a penalty? They missed 2 penalties, didn't they, as well?
I mean, that's why everybody isn't making such a fuss, because in the end, they're given 101 chances every match, and if you can't take any of the others, why should you be given that one? I think is the general gist.
Yeah.
Newcastle is the other team I must mention before we finish, and that is, do you know they've lost Almiron, St. Maximin and Callum Wilson now? All 3 are out.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
I have to mention that because that is going to make a difference at the bottom, isn't it? They've only had 2 wins in the last 17 games, and this comment really is important. Do you know Shelvey, John Joe Shelvey, is their top goal scorer, 7 from last season included. And he was doing a report for one newspaper or something, and when asked, he said he'd hate to play for Leeds because they make you run around the football pitch.
Yeah, I did see that. It was
I love it.
lots of pointless running. Or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, he doesn't like the
Oh,
idea of having to run around a football pitch. I thought that was brilliant. I think Newcastle are in trouble, aren't they?
well, if they got those 3 players out, then definitely.
Yeah.
It's because if you think about it in your head, like those 3 players together, you're thinking that's a not bad front 3 at all, is it? It's
You
like it's
look
very good.
around and you think that's not a bad team to take those
Yeah.
three out, and there's nothing
And
left.
you're like, there's just nothing, and you're like, oh well, yeah, they are in big trouble. As long as Brighton can score a flipping goal, or Fulham, to be fair.
The reason Shelby scored 7, and I bet they're all long shots. I bet you they're all long shots. It's because he hasn't moved.
Doesn't go in the box.
No, so I bet they're all long shots. Anyway, we'll finish there. I'll try and put all this back together now. We've had about 3 breaks in this. I hope everybody's enjoyed that. You've heard about 20 other subjects we've got, which we can. I'll try and sort out which ones we're doing next week. It's just too many. I'll stop listening and reading, so I don't pick up any more. And in fact, I'm going to have to do another recording because Wycombe's next game is Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yeah, and any ideas who we're playing?
No, do you?
Yeah, Watford.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Well, we did all right against them last time.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Please leave your comments, and if you listen to the first part of this, be really nice to me. Thank you very much. And we'll say goodbye.
Some love.